Well, it all comes down to this first round series between the 47 and 35 7-seeded Philadelphia 76ers and the 50 and 32 second-seeded New York Knicks. Game one tomorrow night. It's crazy how fast this has all evolved, right? Sixers win an absolutely chaotic game in the play-in, and here they are, just a couple days later getting ready for the next series. There's a lot to talk about. This will be a bit of a condensed preview, but we'll get as much insight as we can. I'll tell you about some of the main matchups, key factors to winning this series, X factors, and ultimately who I think will get the W in this series. So we will talk about it all. Sixer Nation, I need you to drop your predictions down in the comments. Please give me some thoughts. Who do you think's going to win? What's the most important element for the Sixers getting a W in this series? We will talk about it all. Welcome into Philly Take with RB. I am RB. Follow us everywhere. We will be live every single game on YouTube, just like we were for the Sixers Heat play-in. We had over 40,000 people in there. It was absolutely incredible, and this series will be the same way. So I'm excited to call these games and just kind of live that excitement with all of you. But man, this is a crazy series. Honestly, probably one of the more evenly matched series in my opinion. And when it comes down to it, I want to preview all this by saying the version of Joel Embiid that we get will probably decide this series, right? So I can talk about a bunch of stuff today, but the ultimate factor to this series, the number one key by far, is Joel Embiid's health. We don't have any updates. We don't know. What we do know is what our eyes saw in that play-in game, and Joel Embiid probably looked to be about 40% in that play-in game. He looked awful. Couldn't move around, wasn't establishing himself in the post. He just didn't look right. And, I can go ahead and say everything today, but if Joel Embiid misses 2 games of the series, or he doesn't play well, or he doesn't look or feel like himself, then really none of it matters. The Sixers need to get an over 80% Joel Embiid in this entire series. If not, I don't believe they have much of a chance to win it. The Knicks are a physical team. They're gritty. They play that Tom Thibodeau style of basketball. They're going to use size, speed, strength. They're going to go and attack Embiid early, and the question is, how will he respond? So I think we do need to keep that in mind. But let's talk about this season with the Sixers and the Knicks. They played 4 times. The Sixers won 1 out of the 4 matchups, but only the first game was with Joel Embiid. So let's go and take a look back at that game. The Sixers were in Philadelphia. They lost to the Knicks. They got run off the floor in the fourth quarter. The Knicks outscored them 35-16. This was like a couple days, I believe, right after the Anunoby trade. So, the Knicks were trying to establish themselves as that powerhouse, and that's exactly what they did. They came through, and Joel Embiid had a good game. I think he had 30 and 10, 3 assists, 3 blocks, if I remember correctly. But the New York Knicks, the shooting, the length, the versatility, it was just way too much for the Sixers. And, as they continued to develop after that Anunoby trade, we said, or at least I said, damn, this team's going to be one of the most scary teams in the NBA. Obviously, Julius Randle got hurt, and they were dealing with a lot of injuries. But, with Randle being out with a dislocated shoulder, and I don't mean to offend any Knicks fans if they're tuning in watching this, I actually think the Knicks are better without Julius Randle. In fact, he reminds me a bit of Tobias Harris. Like, he can put up the numbers, he can be there, you can have his impact, but overall, in the grand aspect of the team, it just doesn't feel like it always translates, especially in the playoffs. Now, with a guy like OG Anunoby, and credit to the Knicks, for making the trades they did this season, Anunoby, Burks, Bogdanovich, right? Sixers were trying to trade for Burks and Bogdanovich. Imagine how that would have played out. But with Anunoby, the Knicks are 20-3. They're almost unstoppable. And he's back and obviously playing well, and he can do a lot of different things for that team, right? He can knock down shots. I think he's shooting almost 40% since joining the Knicks, but his defensive versatility, the ability to guard multiple positions, it is unmatched, and they've been really good with OG Anunoby. But anyway, that first matchup, the Knicks got it done. That was the only matchup with Joel Embiid, so I don't really like to put a lot of stock into the other games, but we had that third matchup where the Sixers traveled to New York. I think they played them twice in 3 days, 3 or 4 days, and the Sixers won a really, really ugly game. The only one they won, it was 79-73 at the Garden. Nobody could shoot the ball. It was, I think, one of the lowest scoring games in the last 5 to 6 years, and it was just absolutely insane. But the Sixers got it done. And then a couple days later, the Knicks came back at home again, and they blew the Sixers out 106-79. And that was the crazy Josh Hart game where he had 20 points, 19 rebounds, and 10 assists. And I think that kind of just speaks to, what the Knicks do, right? They have those sparks, those X factors that just come through and have crazy games like that, and it's hard to stop. When it comes to the 76ers, we know it's going to have to run through Joel and Tyrese, and I think that unpredictability is so much better than what the Sixers have had in recent years, right? They don't just have to live or die with hero ball. For instance, the other night, Joel and Tyrese were terrible, but it was the unsung hero. It was the Nico Batum of the world that comes through with 20 points and helps elevate you to that win. Now, Tobias is going to have to be much better. Kelly Oubre is going to have to be really good in this series. It's going to come down to these role players as well. And I don't think you can always say that because obviously your stars are what help you win in the playoffs. And the Sixers are going to have a tough time trying to guard Jalen Brunson. I will say, Sixers have done a pretty good job against him this year. Here's Brunson's stats against the Sixers. He played 4 games, 22.3 points per game in the 4 games, 7.8 assists, and he's only shooting 30% from 3. Now, later in the season, Jalen Brunson has been on an absolute tear. He's getting MVP consideration. And, he's playing like an all-NBA player. You can't take that away from him. But the Sixers, I would expect, will throw a plethora of guys at him, primarily Kyle Lowry, Tyrese Maxey. I'm sure he'll see a lot of double teams. I'm sure just like Embiid, Nick Nurse is going to throw different traps, maybe go to his zone defense. And hopefully it'll be enough to throw Brunson off his game a little bit. I will say a benefit for the Sixers is that unlike the Miami Heat, who had them completely lost in zone, the Knicks don't really revert to that a lot, so I wouldn't expect to see that. You will see a lot of double teams and probably delayed traps and just, little things to try to throw Joel Embiid off and Tyrese Maxey. But, these guys, especially Maxey, cannot deflect the way he did the other night. They are going to have to be locked in and be confident. And, I do want to say when it comes to the Knicks, if you know or don't know from watching this channel, I am a Nova diehard, right? I've watched a lot of Nova games. So I've watched Brunson and DiVincenzo and Hart and all these guys. And just to see them all together is insane, especially in the playoffs against the Sixers. But we need to get it done, man. The Sixers need to get past this first round because then you could probably see a light all the way to the conference finals. I mean, you play the Pacers or the Bucks next. I mean, you could get that done. So we will see how it plays out. But really, obviously, I said the main key is Joel Embiid's health, right? The Knicks are going to try to bump him out of the paint. They're going to try to get physical and make him take bad shots. Sixers cannot turn the ball over. And, Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein, they are going to bang him up. They already are talking a bit of smack. Hartenstein, Paul Reed had something to say yesterday. So there's already a bit of John chippiness. MSG is going to be loud, just like the Wells Fargo. These are 2 of the best fan bases in the NBA. So I will say it's going to get loud. And when those pressure moments happen, right, who's going to fold? Who's going to crumble under the pressure? If Joel Embiid is healthy, though, like I said, if he's above 80%, he's by far the best player in the series. No disrespect to Brunson, and he will dominate. If he is healthy, and I really hope he is, Joel is going to dominate. I feel like I've said this the last 3 years in every playoff series. If Joel Embiid is healthy, he's the best player on the floor. But the question is, will he be? Now, obviously, like I talked about when it comes to defending Brunson, that's really my second key. Defending Brunson and I'd say the X factors, Sixers and Knicks X factors, right? Josh Hart. This guy can drop 20 points out of nowhere. He can go 20 and 15. DiVincenzo had the franchise record for the Knicks with threes in his first season. Started off cold, heated up. That's the story of this team. The Knicks, to me, feel like a team that can really suffocate you, and they can go on like a 11-0 run out of nowhere. Nick Nurse is going to be battle-tested. What will his time management be like? Will he call timeouts to prevent those runs? I give Nick Nurse a lot of credit because he already made the toughest decision, and that was to bench Tobias Harris in the fourth quarter. So now we know. We have a sample, right? Nick Nurse is not afraid to press the button. He's not being held back. If Tobias is not playing up to par, or Oubre or Max, whoever it is, Nick Nurse is going to do what it takes to make the right adjustment, and that's, in my opinion, the biggest advantage that the Sixers have. Tom Thibodeau is a good coach, but Nick Nurse is an elite coach, and he is a championship head coach, and he's going to make the right adjustments in game. And I think, Nurse will draw up some ways to stop Jalen Brunson. If they do that, I think the Sixers have a clear advantage in this series. Knicks like to run a Brunson-centric offense, but they got shooters that can knock down. No Julius Randle to kind of take some of those dribble duties. So, if Kelly Oubre can have a couple games in this series where he drops 18 or, obviously we can't expect Batum to drop 20 every game, but if we get like a 15-point game out of Batum with 5 threes, if we get even a couple big Tobias games, right? Tobias, we need you. All right, there's rumors coming out about you, free agency, all that. Who cares? Tobias, if you want to get paid, you go out there, the New York native, and you get it done. You need to step up, Tobias. It is enough is enough. It is time to step up in the spotlight. Tobias, even if you're not scoring the rock, we need you to rebound. We need you to defend. We are going to need everybody in this series. Obviously, some of the bench sparks, whether it's Buddy Hield or Campaign or whoever, right? I feel like this is a series where the Sixers definitely missed Melton and Rocco. Definitely could have used their length and versatility on the perimeter in terms of defending some of these Knicks options. But hey, man, you got to do what you got to do with what you have. And at the end of the day, it's going to get tough here. But who will come through? I think my last ultimate key is rebounding. If you didn't know, the Knicks are number 1 in offensive rebounding. Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson average somewhere between 6 to 8 offensive rebounds per game together. If the Sixers tend to allow second chance points like they did against Miami, they are not going to have a good chance in this series, right? Obviously, the Sixers rebounded more than Miami, but it was the timely rebounds. It was the timely second chance points that were killing this team. And if you're not pushing out and rotating the correct way and closing out on these shooters, and you're giving them 2, 3, 4 opportunities down the floor at one possession, it's not going to go well for you. The Knicks are going to try to horse you on the glass, and the Sixers need to have that toughness, really that mental toughness. You got to box out. You got to get scrappy with these boys, man. You have to stay up to par with them because they are relentless. And when it comes down to the Sixers, again, whether it's Tobias or Batum or Oubre, somebody's going to have to help Joel on the glass. He can't do everything. So I am a bit worried about that. And, the more second chance points they get, the more offensive rebounds, the louder the Garden's going to get, and the more those fans will get into it. So Sixers really need to wake up and box these guys out. So ultimately, when it comes down to it, like I said, a tough series to predict. I do think it's evenly matched, but in the playoffs, the star power comes to play. I believe Tyrese Maxey will play better than he did in that play-in game. And if we get a healthy Joel Embiid, I do think the Sixers have the advantage. I think Nick Nurse will provide a huge boost to this team in multiple areas that they have not had in the past. I will say this, though. This is my overall take. The Sixers cannot let this get to a Game 7. It cannot go to MSG in Game 7. They will not win that. Recent history has shown that it's very hard to win on the road in a Game 7, but also with this Sixers team. They need to win it in 6, and I believe they will. I think they get it done 4-2, win it in front of their home fans at the Wells Fargo Center, and I think the Sixers punch their ticket to the second round if Joel Embiid plays this series and is healthy, because I just think the star power will be too much. It'll be evenly matched. There will be a lot of dogs in this series, but Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey cannot be stopped. They will not be stopped, and overall, I think they get the W in this one. So we'll see how it plays out, man. Going to be very, very interesting. But, what do you think is going to happen? Who's going to be the main X factor in this series? What are the keys to winning? You let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments section. Like I said, we will be live for every single game right here on YouTube. We'll give you the post-game coverage as well. And we will also do a lot of other content as well. So that being said, thank you all for tuning in. One day away, I am pumping with excitement. The nerves are going, but I can't wait to see what happens. Appreciate you all. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. That being said, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.